Hello, my name is Daniel Buckles. Welcome to Methods for Participatory Action Research. This video illustrates the selection and combination of tools to fit a specific situation and purpose, an approach to action inquiry we call process design. The story that follows involves a sequence of questions and related tools designed to improve the disaster relief efforts of the Catholic religious order, the Chameleon Ministers of the Sick. They run dozens of hospitals in the Global South, a service that draws the medical staff, priests, nuns, and lay members of the Church into responding to natural disasters and human-caused emergencies. They sought our help in their efforts to better engage people, including the most vulnerable, in the planning process. The methodology we created was built for purpose, to create plans that communities can use to improve disaster relief efforts and help people at risk build capacities for harm reduction and self-preservation. The approach is based on the notion that every community and context is different in some way, making ready-made methodologies applied to all settings suspect. In this case, the core planning group started with Stakeholder Analysis Rainbow, a simple tool in Module 3 to identify who is affected by a situation and who has influence over outcomes. This understanding is key to getting the right people in the room, including groups or individuals that are not necessarily part of the official emergency system. For example, a member of the core planning group in the Philippines identified a stakeholder group he thought was influential but overlooked. He explained that during storm surges, a handful of women and elders in an informal settlement along the waterfront of Manila, the capital, play a critical role mobilizing people and guiding them to safety. Identifying and convening the right stakeholders prepared the ground for the planning process proper. Participants proceeded through a series of assessments organized in a sequence, where the answer to one question served as the input to the next question or discussion that followed. They started with resource mapping and storytelling from Module 2 to lay out the spatial and experiential variations of past disasters and identify lessons. One disaster was the tropical storm Washi, which took thousands of lives on the east coast of Mindanao in the Philippines. Another was an 8.0 earthquake along the central coast of Peru that killed more than 500 people. The maps made by people that had lived through each disaster helped elicit past responses and failings of relief organizations and local people. Some observations related to choices people made regarding where to build their homes in the first place. Other observations related to monitoring systems that warned people as storms approached. The human experience of disaster, feelings of fear, helplessness, and loss in the aftermath, also emerged in the stories people told about their maps. The group then used the information from resource mapping and storytelling to support discussion of the kinds of things that can go wrong with relief efforts. Timeline, also from Module 2, then helped structure the observations into the 4 standard phases of the disaster management cycle: prevention, preparedness, emergency response, and recovery. We placed 4 chairs in a row to represent each phase and invited people to sit, one at a time, at one of the phases and discuss a specific threat related to the phase. For example, people spoke about unclear evacuation routes, the absence of an early warning system, inadequate stocks of emergency rations of food and water, or poor knowledge of basic first aid as threats to preparedness. The collective timeline analysis served as an input to an exercise in risk assessment, which came next, using the tool called Hazards in Module 4. It assesses the level of risk for a threat by scoring the severity of the potential harm, the probability that the harm will occur, and the current capacity of people and organizations to avoid or respond to the harm. The discussion helped the group gradually and progressively build consensus around threats that were priorities for them in their context. Typically, they selected for deeper discussion the high severity and likely threats for which they currently had little capacity to manage. This exercise can be done separately with different populations, men and women, for example, to see who might be more or less vulnerable to specific threats. The rest of the methodology followed the organizing framework of the carousel, combined with contribution and feasibility, as described in our video clip, Carousel. The overall process generated context-specific plans to overcome priority threats to effective disaster relief action.